Sometimes, destiny doesn't knock. It dives headfirst into chaos, into moments so ordinary you never imagine your entire life is about to change. It was a bright Saturday afternoon, the kind of day that looked like it had been painted by the sun itself, warm, perfect, and lazy. A celebration was in full swing at the rooftop of an exclusive luxury hotel in the heart of the city. The pool sparkled like glass, surrounded by laughter, champagne flutes, and the sound of music pulsing through the air. Among the guests was Anthony Rivers, 29, confident, handsome, and every inch the image of success. The kind of man who made everything look effortless. His company, one of the most promising startups in the country, had just hit a massive milestone, and this party was his team's way of celebrating. People congratulated him left and right, pats on the back, glasses raised, compliments showered. But even amid the laughter and chatter, Anthony felt oddly detached. Success had come quickly, but so had emptiness. His smile was real enough to fool others, but inside, he knew something was missing, something he couldn't quite name. And then it happened. A scream cut through the air. Anthony turned sharply toward the pool, and time seemed to stop. A young woman had slipped, her heel catching the edge of the slick tiles, and in a flash, she plunged into the water with a loud splash. No one moved at first. Music kept playing, people froze, staring. But Anthony didn't hesitate. Without thinking, without caring that he was still in his tailored suit, he sprinted and dove straight into the pool. The cold water shocked his body, but his mind stayed sharp. He saw her sinking motionless for a terrifying second, her dress swirling around her like broken glass beneath the blue water. He reached her, wrapped an arm around her waist, and kicked hard, breaking the surface with a gasp. "Call an ambulance," he shouted, his voice shaking but commanding. He pulled her to the edge, helped by a few others who finally rushed to assist. Her head rested in his lap, her face pale, her lips slightly blue. She wasn't breathing. Anthony's heart slammed against his ribs. "Come on," he whispered, starting CPR with desperate precision. "Don't you dare leave." Seconds felt like hours. Then suddenly, she coughed, water spilling from her mouth as she gasped for air. Relief hit him so hard his eyes burned. "That's it," he murmured, brushing wet hair from her face. "You're okay. You're safe now." But she wasn't okay. Not yet. She drifted in and out of consciousness as paramedics arrived and carefully lifted her onto a stretcher. Anthony followed close behind, his soaked clothes clinging to him, but he didn't care. He couldn't walk away, not after what he'd seen. At the hospital, the sterile air buzzed with urgency. Doctors and nurses surrounded her, working quickly. Anthony stood just outside the emergency room, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't even know her name. Minutes passed, then hours. Finally, a nurse approached him. "She's stable now," the nurse said kindly. "You really saved her life." Anthony nodded silently, a wave of relief washing over him. But beneath it, something else stirred, something deeper. "Can I see her?" he asked quietly. "She's resting," the nurse said, "but you can sit by her for a while." The room was dim, the rhythmic beeping of machines filling the silence. The woman lay there, peaceful now, her long hair fanned across the pillow like gold against white. Her face, delicate, almost angelic, looked far too young to have come so close to death. Anthony sat beside her, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest. He couldn't explain why, but something about her presence held him there. Maybe it was the fragility of the moment, or maybe it was how alive she suddenly made him feel. He glanced at the name tag on her hospital bracelet. Jennifer Cole. "Jennifer," he whispered softly, as if saying her name might somehow protect her. Hours passed. He didn't move. Nurses came and went, offering food or a change of clothes, but he refused to leave her side. It wasn't rational, it wasn't logical, but Anthony felt like he was meant to be there, like fate had orchestrated everything down to the second. When Jennifer finally stirred, blinking her eyes open, the world around her felt blurred, disoriented. She tried to sit up but winced. "Hey," Anthony said quickly, his voice low and reassuring. Take it easy. You're in the hospital. You're safe. She looked at him, her expression confused. Who are you? He smiled faintly. I'm the guy who jumped into a pool in a very expensive suit. Her lips curved into a weak smile, her eyes softening. You saved me. He shook his head. You did the hard part. You fought your way back. They stared at each other in silence for a long moment, both realizing this wasn't just gratitude or coincidence. Something unspoken had sparked between them. Then Jennifer whispered, her voice barely audible, "Thank you." Anthony smiled, feeling something shift inside him. You don't have to thank me. Just get better. She nodded, her eyes fluttering closed again, exhaustion pulling her back into sleep. Anthony leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. The storm inside him had calmed, but in its place, something new had taken root. A quiet certainty. He didn't know what it meant yet, but he knew one thing for sure. His life would never be the same again. Outside, the night stretched endlessly across the city skyline. But for the first time in a long time, Anthony felt a light flicker inside his heart. And it all began with a fall. One that wasn't his, but somehow changed him completely. He looked at Jennifer one last time before whispering to himself, maybe this was supposed to happen. He didn't know it yet, but destiny had just begun to write its story. One that neither of them would ever forget. The sound of water still echoed in Anthony's mind long after that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he could still see Jennifer's face. Pale, still, fragile, floating just beneath the surface before he dove in. He had saved many people before through his company's philanthropy, helped communities, even sponsored rescue programs. But this was different. That night, he hadn't saved a stranger. He had saved something that felt like a part of his own soul. At the hospital, the sterile white lights made everything feel distant, unreal. Jennifer lay unconscious, an oxygen mask covering her mouth, her chest rising slowly with each breath. Anthony sat beside her bed, drenched clothes replaced by a hospital gown, but his eyes never left her. Doctors came and went, nurses checked monitors, but he stayed. Hours passed, then the morning came and still he didn't move. Finally, as the soft light of dawn entered the room, Jennifer's fingers twitched. Anthony leaned forward, his heart pounding. Her eyes fluttered open, confused, lost, then finally focused on him. Where am I? She whispered, her voice trembling. In the hospital, he said softly. You almost drowned, but you're safe now. She blinked, looking around, trying to remember. You saved me? He smiled faintly. I did what anyone would have done. But she shook her head weakly. No, you didn't even know me. Anthony looked down, his tone sincere, almost vulnerable. Maybe not, but for some reason, I couldn't just stand there. Her eyes softened, studying his face, and for a moment, silence filled the space between them. Gentle, intimate, unspoken. Over the next few days, Anthony visited her every morning. He brought her flowers, warm soup, and stories about random things just to make her smile. The hospital staff began whispering about the handsome CEO who seemed to have found someone who made him stay longer than any business meeting ever could. Jennifer learned that he wasn't just some rich playboy, as she had first assumed. He was thoughtful, humble, and surprisingly kind. And Anthony discovered that Jennifer wasn't just beautiful. She was strong, independent, and had dreams that had been buried under years of struggle. She worked as a freelance designer, supporting her younger brother after their parents' death. One evening, as the sun painted the sky gold, Anthony found her sitting by the hospital window, staring outside. You should be resting, he said gently. She smiled. I've been resting for days. I just wanted to see the sunset. It reminds me that even after the storm, the sky always finds a way to shine again. He leaned against the wall, captivated. You talk like someone who's seen many storms. She looked at him then, her eyes deep, filled with both sadness and resilience. I have, but tonight, I feel like I survived one more. That night, Anthony didn't sleep. He kept thinking about her words, about the way she looked at the sunset, as if she was finally letting herself hope again. He didn't realize it yet, but something inside him had shifted, something he hadn't felt in years. A week later, Jennifer was discharged. She didn't expect Anthony to still be there, but he was waiting outside the hospital with a gentle smile and his car parked at the curb. "You don't have to take me," she said shyly. "I know," he replied, "but I want to." The drive was quiet, peaceful. Soft music played in the background as the city lights blurred past. At one point, Jennifer glanced at him and said, "You know, I never thanked you properly." He looked at her, smiling. "You're here. That's all the thanks I need." When they reached her small apartment, she hesitated before getting out. "Anthony," she said softly, "I don't know how to repay you for everything." "You don't owe me anything," he said. "Just take care of yourself." And with that, she smiled, waved, and disappeared behind her door. But as Anthony drove away, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just left a piece of himself behind in that quiet little building. That night, Jennifer lay in bed, unable to sleep. She kept thinking about the man who had saved her, not just from drowning, but from the numbness that had quietly taken over her life. For the first time in years, she felt seen. And Anthony, alone in his luxurious penthouse, couldn't stop replaying the sound of her laugh, the warmth in her eyes. He had everything a man could ask for: wealth, success, admiration. But now he realized he had been missing something simple, something real. Days passed, but neither of them could stop thinking about the other. Until one morning, Anthony appeared at Jennifer's door, holding a cup of coffee and a nervous smile. "I thought maybe," he said, "we could start the day together." She laughed softly, surprised but delighted. "You're not supposed to visit patients after they're discharged, doctor." "I'm not here as a doctor," he said. "I'm here as someone who can't stop thinking about the woman he pulled from the water." Jennifer froze for a second, her heart racing. And in that instant, she realized this wasn't just gratitude. It was something much deeper, something neither of them had planned for. From that day on, mornings began with laughter, shared stories, and long walks through the park. Anthony's friends noticed the change in him. The once stoic, distant businessman now smiled more, laughed easily, and seemed alive. Jennifer, too, bloomed like a flower after a long winter. She started drawing again, creating designs filled with color and life, inspired by the new light in her heart. They were different worlds, his filled with wealth and privilege, hers with simplicity and warmth. But when they were together, none of that mattered. And as days turned into weeks, their connection only grew stronger, deeper, like two hearts that had been searching for each other all along. But just when everything seemed perfect, a shadow loomed over their newfound happiness. An unexpected test that would reveal what love truly meant to both of them. Would Anthony's world accept a woman like Jennifer? And would she be strong enough to stand beside him when the weight of his life came crashing down? Fate, it seemed, wasn't done testing the strength of their hearts. The morning sun poured through the tall glass windows of Anthony's office, casting golden lines across the polished floor. But he barely noticed it. His mind was somewhere else. Somewhere softer, simpler. Somewhere where Jennifer's laughter lived. For weeks now, his life had felt different. Meetings that once drained him now passed by like background noise. He'd catch himself smiling during phone calls, or daydreaming in the middle of board discussions. His assistant had noticed too, whispering to colleagues, "Mr. Sterling's actually happy." He was. But happiness, as Anthony was about to learn, sometimes attracts storms of its own. That evening, he invited Jennifer to dinner, not in one of the city's grand restaurants, but in a quiet rooftop garden he often used to think alone. It overlooked the skyline, the lights shimmering like stars fallen to earth. When she arrived, wearing a soft blue dress and a nervous smile, Anthony felt his heart stop for a moment. "You look beautiful," he said, almost in a whisper. She blushed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You always know how to make a girl feel seen." As they talked, laughter came easily. They shared stories about childhood dreams, failures, fears. Jennifer confessed she used to imagine designing clothes for people who had lost everything, to give them back a little piece of beauty. Anthony told her about the nights he stayed awake wondering if all his success had any meaning at all. By the end of the night, the city felt smaller, and their world felt like it had room only for two. But as the elevator doors closed behind them, Anthony's phone buzzed. It was a message from his mother. "Who is this woman you've been seen with? We need to talk." His heart sank. A few days later, Anthony brought Jennifer to a company event, a formal charity gala his family's foundation hosted every year. She hesitated at first. "Anthony, are you sure I should go? I don't really belong in places like that." He smiled gently. "You belong anywhere I am." She believed him. Dressed in a simple but elegant gown she'd sewn herself, Jennifer walked beside him as cameras flashed and guests turned their heads. Whispers began, quiet at first, then sharper. "Who is she? She's not from our circle. Did you hear? She was in the hospital weeks ago. Some kind of accident." Jennifer felt every word like a sting. Anthony noticed the tension in her shoulders and whispered, "Ignore them. Just look at me." But then his mother approached, poised, graceful, her expression carved from ice. "Anthony," she said sweetly, "you didn't tell me we'd have a guest." He smiled politely. "Mother, this is Jennifer." The older woman's eyes flicked over her, assessing every detail. The simple gown, the nervous hands, the faint blush on her cheeks. "Charming," she said, though her tone betrayed her disapproval. "And what do you do, dear?" "I'm a designer," Jennifer replied softly. "I work independently." "I see," his mother said, smiling in that way that wasn't quite a smile. "How admirable." Anthony's jaw tightened. He knew that tone too well, the one that said she's not one of us. The night dragged on, filled with polite smiles and quiet cruelty. Jennifer tried her best to blend in, but she felt like a stranger in a gilded world that wasn't built for her. When they finally left, she sat silently in the car, staring out the window. Anthony reached for her hand. "Hey, don't let them get to you." She forced a smile. "I'm fine," but he could hear the tremble in her voice. "Jennifer, I'm sorry. I didn't realize." "You don't have to apologize," she said softly. "It's just, I'm not sure where I fit in your world." He looked at her, his chest heavy. "Then I'll build a new one where you do." Her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but from the unbearable tenderness of his words. "You say things that make it hard not to believe you." He kissed her hand. "Then don't stop believing." But the world didn't make it easy. In the days that followed, gossip spread. Photos of Anthony and Jennifer appeared online with cruel headlines. CEO falls for common girl. From boardroom to basement romance. Investors whispered. Business partners questioned his judgment. Anthony ignored it all, until his mother arrived at his office unannounced. "Anthony," she began, her voice sharp but controlled. "You're risking everything. Your reputation, the company, our family name. For a woman you barely know." "I know her enough to know she's real," he said coldly. "More real than anyone in this room has been in years." "Real doesn't keep shareholders happy," she snapped. "She will ruin you." Anthony stood, his voice steady but burning. "Then let it be ruined. I'd rather lose everything than live a life that isn't mine." For a moment, silence filled the office. His mother's expression softened, but only slightly. "You're blinded, Anthony. One day you'll see what I mean." She left and the door closed behind her. But her words lingered, echoing in his mind. That night, Anthony went to Jennifer's apartment, exhausted, his heart heavy. She opened the door, smiling, but her smile faded when she saw his face. "What happened?" she asked gently. He didn't answer right away. He just wrapped his arms around her, holding her as if the world outside no longer mattered. "I don't care what they say," he whispered. "I just need you." And for a while, nothing else did. They spent the night talking, laughing, dreaming about futures that didn't need approval or permission. But beneath their laughter, both knew love wasn't always enough to silence the world. Weeks later, As spring began to bloom again, Jennifer got a call. A major fashion house had seen her designs online and wanted to meet. She was overjoyed until she realized who had arranged it. Anthony. He had used his influence to open a door for her, a kind gesture, but one that made her feel small, dependent. When she confronted him, he tried to explain. "I just wanted to help. I didn't need your help," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I just needed your faith." He reached for her, but she stepped back. "I love you, Anthony, but if you truly believe in me, you have to let me stand on my own." Her words cut deep, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. And so, for the first time since they met, Anthony watched her walk away, not out of anger, but out of strength. As the door closed, he felt an ache in his chest, something unfamiliar. Love wasn't just about saving someone, he realized. Sometimes it was about trusting them enough to let them fly. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet that filled Anthony's penthouse felt heavier than any storm. The rooms that once echoed with laughter now whispered with memories. Jennifer's soft voice, the sound of her footsteps, the faint scent of her perfume that still lingered in the air. He sat by the window most nights, overlooking the glittering city, wondering if she was out there somewhere looking at the same sky. He could have called her. He could have driven to her apartment. But something inside him told him not to, that real love sometimes needed distance to breathe. Jennifer, meanwhile, was learning to breathe again on her own. She had accepted the meeting with the fashion house not because of Anthony, but because of herself. The first day she walked into that building, surrounded by professionals who had spent their lives chasing beauty, she felt small, until she remembered his words, "You belong anywhere I am." And maybe now, she thought, I belong anywhere I dare to be. Her sketches, inspired by the simplicity of real-life street vendors, mothers carrying children, the curve of rain-soaked flowers, caught the eye of the company's director. They saw in her work what Anthony had seen in her soul, truth wrapped in gentleness. Soon, her designs began appearing in showcases. Her name, once unknown, started to rise quietly in the world of fashion. She wasn't rich yet, but she was standing tall. Not because of help, but because of her own hands. And though she missed Anthony, she carried his memory like a compass, guiding her steps towards something greater. One rainy afternoon, Anthony attended a medical fundraiser at the city's art gallery. He wasn't in the mood to socialize, but his company had sponsored the event, and he had obligations. As he wandered through the exhibits, his eyes landed on something unexpected. A display of dresses, beautifully crafted, each one telling a story of strength and tenderness. A sign stood beside it. The Heart's Fabric, A Collection by Jennifer Lane. His breath caught. Every piece was hers, her colors, her patterns, her soul. One dress in particular stopped him cold. A flowing white gown embroidered with small blue birds, delicate but strong. He remembered her once telling him, "If I could design freedom, it would look like wings." And there they were, her wings hanging in front of him. Without thinking, he called her name softly under his breath, as if she might somehow appear. And then she did. Across the room, Jennifer was standing beside a group of photographers, smiling politely, radiant in a simple black dress. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world around them vanished. Anthony froze, unsure if he should approach. He had imagined this moment 100 times. What he would say, how she would react, but now words felt too small. She hesitated too, clutching the strap of her purse. Then she took a deep breath and began walking toward him. When they finally stood face to face, silence stretched between them like fragile glass. "You came," she said softly. He nodded, smiling faintly. "I didn't know you'd be here, but maybe I did." Her lips curved gently. "I didn't expect to see you either." For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Not as two people broken by pride, but as two souls who had walked through their own storms and come out stronger. "I saw your collection," he said finally. "It's beautiful, just like you." She laughed quietly, shaking her head. "You always say things like that. It's because they're always true." Her eyes softened. "Thank you, Anthony, for everything. Even the pain, it taught me who I am. He looked down, his voice quieter now. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, she said. But we both needed time to become who we were meant to be. The gallery lights shimmered above them, and for the first time in months, Anthony felt peace. Still, something in her expression told him she wasn't ready to step back into his world. Not yet. So he simply said, "If you ever need me, for anything, I'll be there." She smiled, that same soft, knowing smile that had once healed something inside him. "I know you will." They parted that night without promises, without tears, but both of them knew this wasn't an ending. It was a pause, a moment written in the language of patience. Months passed again, and life carried them in different directions. Jennifer's career began to bloom. Her name appeared in magazines, and she started her own small studio, a warm, sunlit place where creativity felt alive. She taught young designers who couldn't afford formal education, believing everyone deserved a chance to create something beautiful. Anthony, meanwhile, made quiet changes in his company. Inspired by Jennifer's humility, he began new initiatives, health programs for underprivileged communities, free checkups in poor neighborhoods, scholarships for aspiring doctors. When asked why he had shifted focus, he always said the same thing: "Because someone once showed me that saving lives isn't just about medicine, it's about compassion." Her influence was everywhere, even in her absence. Then one day, fate decided their time apart had been long enough. It happened on a crisp autumn afternoon. Jennifer was sitting in a small park, sketching in her notebook, lost in thought. Sophia, one of her students' daughters, ran past chasing a balloon that slipped from her hand. Jennifer laughed and stood to help, and that's when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Still chasing beauty, I see." She turned, and there he was, Anthony, standing beneath a tree, holding a cup of coffee, his eyes warm and kind, his smile a little nervous. "Anthony," she breathed, "what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," he said, walking closer. "I've been volunteering at the clinic nearby. Saw you from across the park. I thought maybe I was dreaming." Jennifer laughed softly, shaking her head. "You and your timing." He handed her the coffee. "Still too sweet. Just how you like it." She took it, her fingers brushing his. And in that small touch, every wall they had built slowly began to crumble. They sat on a bench, talking until the sun began to set. "I saw your new studio," he said. "You've built something amazing, Jennifer." She smiled. "And I saw your foundation's work. You've changed a lot too." "I guess we both did," he replied, looking into her eyes. "Maybe that's why this feels right again." There was a long pause, not awkward, but full of understanding. "Anthony," she said softly, "what if it all happens again? The pressure, the gossip, your family." He shook his head gently. "Then let them talk. I've already lived a life that looked perfect but felt empty. I'm done with pretending." She looked down, smiling through tears. "I missed you." He took her hand. "Then don't ever let me go again." And under the fading orange sky, surrounded by laughter, autumn leaves, and second chances, Jennifer leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. Sometimes love doesn't need grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it just needs two people brave enough to start again. The weeks that followed felt like something out of a dream. Anthony and Jennifer found their way back to each other as if no time had passed. Yet everything about them had changed. They were no longer the man and woman who had met beside a swimming pool under the chaos of flashing lights and shallow laughter. They were two souls who had learned the cost of distance, the price of pride, and the rare beauty of forgiveness. Their relationship blossomed quietly this time. No parties, no headlines, no gossip. Just coffee in small cafes, long walks in the park, laughter over shared dinners, and late-night conversations where silence meant more than words. But fate, as always, has a way of testing what the heart claims to know. One gray afternoon, while Jennifer was working in her studio, her assistant rushed in with panic in her eyes. "There's been an accident," she said breathlessly. "At the construction site your charity sponsors, one of the clinics. It's all over the news." Jennifer's heart stopped. What? Which site? The one downtown. The one Dr. Anthony was visiting today. Her sketchbook fell from her hands. In a blur, she was out the door, her body moving faster than her thoughts. She didn't even feel the cold wind cutting through her jacket or hear the sounds of sirens wailing in the distance. All she could hear was the pounding of her heart. When she reached the site, the chaos was overwhelming. The structure had partially collapsed due to a gas leak. Firefighters were moving fast, people were shouting, and debris covered the ground. Her eyes darted through the crowd until she saw a familiar figure on a stretcher, covered in dust, his face pale but unmistakable. "Anthony!" she screamed, pushing through the barriers. A paramedic stopped her, but she fought her way closer until she reached his side. He was conscious, but barely. His hand trembled as he reached for hers. "Hey!" he whispered weakly, his lips curved in a faint smile. "You always find me when I'm trying to look heroic." Tears streamed down her face as she clutched his hand. "Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine." He winced slightly, his breath shallow. "There was a child trapped. I couldn't just stand there." She shook her head, her voice breaking. "You can't save everyone, Anthony." He looked into her eyes, and even in that moment of pain, there was peace in his. "Maybe not, but I can try." She leaned over him, her forehead pressed against his. "Don't you dare leave me now. Not when I just got you back." He smiled faintly. "I'm not planning to go anywhere." The paramedics lifted him into the ambulance, and she climbed in beside him, refusing to let go of his hand. At the hospital, time blurred. Hours passed like seconds. Jennifer sat outside the emergency room, her hands trembling, her clothes still streaked with dust from the site. She prayed silently, her eyes fixed on the glowing "in surgery" sign. When the doors finally opened, the surgeon stepped out, pulling off his mask. "He's stable," he said gently. "He'll need time, but he's strong. He's going to be all right." Jennifer covered her face, sobbing with relief. That night, she sat by his bedside as he slept, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. Machines beeped softly, the only sound in the room. For the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of losing everything, because she finally understood what mattered most. Love wasn't about grand rescues or perfect lives. It was about staying when everything else fell apart. When Anthony opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was her tired, tear-streaked face, her fingers intertwined with his. "Hey!" he murmured weakly. "You look terrible." She laughed through her tears. "You're one to talk." He smiled. "You didn't leave." She shook her head. "Never again." And from that moment on, neither of them did. Weeks later, Anthony recovered fully. The story of his bravery spread across the city. How a wealthy doctor had risked his life to save a child in a collapsing building. Reporters tried to get interviews, but he refused them all. The only public statement he made was during a small press event for his foundation. Jennifer stood quietly in the crowd as he spoke. "Heroes are not people who save lives for glory," Anthony said. "They're the ones who love enough to show up, again and again, even when it hurts. I've learned that the heart heals best when it's shared." When he stepped down from the podium, their eyes met across the room. The applause faded, the crowd disappeared, and all that existed was the space between them, closing once more. Later that night, under the city lights, Anthony and Jennifer walked hand in hand along the quiet streets. "I think," she said softly, "we've had enough accidents for one lifetime." He chuckled. "Maybe, but I'm glad for everyone that led me to you." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You almost died." He looked down at her, smiling gently. "I almost didn't live before you." They stopped by the edge of a fountain, the water shimmering under the moonlight. He turned to face her, his hand brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Jennifer," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I don't want to waste another second pretending that love can wait. You and we've both been through too much to doubt what we already know." She looked into his eyes, her heart racing. "So," he said, kneeling down slowly, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Will you make me the luckiest man alive? For a moment, the world stood still. Tears filled her eyes, but her smile said everything. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and as he stood, she wrapped her arms around him, laughing and crying all at once. The fountain sparkled behind them, the city hummed around them, and somewhere deep inside, both knew this wasn't just love born from chance. It was destiny, refined by struggle, tested by loss, and sealed by hope. Because sometimes life throws us into chaos, not to break us, but to lead us exactly where we belong. When Jennifer finally woke up the next morning, sunlight was pouring through the hospital blinds, painting the room in gold. Her first sight was Anthony, still sitting in the same chair as the night before, his head resting on his arm beside her bed. He looked exhausted, but peaceful, like someone who had fought a battle and finally found rest. She smiled softly. "Anthony," she whispered. He stirred, his eyes opening, and the moment he saw her awake, his face lit up. "You're okay," he breathed, leaning forward, his voice trembling with relief. "You scared me more than I've ever been scared in my life." Jennifer reached for his hand, her touch gentle. "You saved me, twice I think, first in the water and then by staying." He shook his head. "No, Jennifer, you're the one who saved me. I just didn't know I needed saving until I met you." Over the next few weeks, as Jennifer recovered, Anthony never left her side. He visited every morning before work and returned every evening after the office lights went dark. He brought her flowers, coffee, and laughter, things the hospital desperately lacked. The nurses began to joke that they were the couple from a romance novel, and even Jennifer's doctor started calling Anthony the guardian angel in a suit. When she was finally discharged, Anthony offered her a ride home. But Jennifer hesitated, not because she didn't trust him, but because her home was far from the glittering city he came from. It was a small, modest apartment above a bakery, the kind of place where success didn't wear designer shoes. But when she shyly mentioned it, Anthony smiled. "Then I guess I'll have to get used to the smell of fresh bread," he said. "Because I'm not going anywhere." Weeks turned into months. Jennifer healed, not just from the accident, but from the loneliness that had quietly haunted her life. Anthony too began to change. He started skipping corporate parties, choosing instead to spend quiet evenings with her, cooking dinner together, or watching the sunset from her tiny balcony. He realized how much of his life had been about appearances. The perfect car, the perfect company, the perfect house. Yet none of it had ever made him feel this alive. Jennifer, with her simplicity and warmth, had shown him something he didn't know he'd been missing: a reason to feel. One night, as they walked hand in hand through the park where they first met after the hospital, Anthony stopped under a glowing streetlight. The soft hum of the city surrounded them, but in that moment, it felt like the world had gone still. He looked at her, his expression serious but full of love. "Jennifer," he said quietly, "when I pulled you out of that pool, I thought I was saving your life. But now I know it was my own that was being rescued. You taught me what it means to really live, to care, to love, to be human again." Tears shimmered in Jennifer's eyes. "And you reminded me that miracles still happen," she whispered. Anthony reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it slowly, revealing a delicate ring, simple, elegant, like her. "Jennifer," he said softly, "will you let me keep rescuing you, every day, for the rest of our lives?" Jennifer's hands flew to her mouth, and she nodded through tears. "Yes, Anthony, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and the city lights seemed to shine a little brighter. Months later, their wedding was small and beautiful, held by the edge of the same pool where fate had brought them together. As they stood before their friends, family, and colleagues, everyone whispered about how incredible it was that love could begin in chaos and end in peace. When Anthony kissed Jennifer under the open sky, the guests clapped, but for the two of them, it felt like silence. The kind of silence where souls speak louder than words. After the ceremony, Anthony turned to the crowd, his voice steady but emotional. "If life has taught me anything," he said, It's that sometimes we fall so we can be found. Jennifer was my miracle, and I'll spend the rest of my life being hers. Years passed, and they built a life that was real. Not perfect, not extravagant, but genuine. Anthony left his corporate job and opened a rehabilitation center for accident survivors, inspired by Jennifer's story. Together, they helped others heal, not just their bodies, but their hearts. Every year, on the anniversary of the day they met, they returned to that same pool. Anthony would toss a single white rose into the water, a quiet reminder of how fragile life could be, and how love, when found, could change everything. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Jennifer leaned against him and smiled. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't jumped in that day?" Anthony looked at her, his eyes soft with gratitude. "I don't have to," he said, "because I did. And because of that, I found forever." The camera would fade on that moment, the rippling water reflecting their smiles, the world around them calm and golden. Proof that sometimes, the most powerful stories aren't about wealth or status, but about two hearts that almost drowned and chose to save each other instead.